Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Happy Productive Podcast. I cannot wait to dive into a conversation with my guest today, Miss Amy Kemp. Amy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I was just saying, I'm thrilled to be here just as a listener, to be able to contribute to this space. Feels like a gift. So thank you for
Oh,
the invitation.
you're welcome. We're so excited to have you. And your story really intrigues me and inspires me as I was learning so much about you. And you have to tell me about how you went from teaching high school to like starting a direct sales business in your laundry room. I'm like, okay, this is a story that I need to hear and I need to know more about. So please share.
Of course. So originally, I thought that I would be a college professor. So my original goal in life was that. I love ideas. I love reading. I love learning. I love words. But when I got into the higher level PhD courses, I realized that I didn't want to spend my life with my nose reading about Marxist literary theory. And so I happened to be also involved in student teaching at the time and just went that path. Maybe I'm a little too ambitious to just work for someone else, but I quickly felt limited, antsy, like just a need for something more. And so I started a very small business in direct sales on the side, which grew way faster than what I thought it would. I got to a place with that business where I earned the use of a free car. And then I had a baby, and I knew, okay, I've got to make a choice here. Either I go full time entrepreneurship or we kind of just pare back on this business. But I couldn't do all three things like I wanted to. So decided to take a risk and just jump into being an entrepreneur. I think it's easier when you're younger also. I mean, you're kind of like on a jet ski. I feel like if I were to do that now, it would be like turning a cruise ship, in
Yep.
some ways. Um, but at that time, it felt like, well, we can make it work. And so we did. So for 20 years, I grew a really large organization across the country of about 1,000 independent sales consultants that I was leading and guiding and mentoring, and loved that work and thought I would do it forever. Oh, and then have you ever had this happen where everywhere you go, there's a message and you keep hearing the same message? It's like, oh, there's a podcast and then there's a book and then you have lunch with a friend. And I kept hearing this message: you're supposed to work with women outside
Mhm.
of this business. And
Yeah.
I just felt like that was ridiculous. I mean, I was full capacity. There was just a lot happening in our world with our kids, with my husband's work. It just felt absolutely absurd to think about growing something new. And yet I could not put it down. It just kept coming back. At the same time, we really had a meeting, and this is the opening story in my book that's coming out, with our financial advisor, where she said a sentence to me that like changed the course of my life, which basically was, your finances are organized, you're doing a great job of budgeting, you're not overspending. But if these are your goals in this category that you've filled out this form and told me, you're not making enough money.
Mm.
And when I tell you all the air left the room, I mean, I don't remember anything in that meeting beyond those words. And I also remember scrambling quickly, like, is there any way, can my husband make more money? Is there any way that this responsibility doesn't fall on me? I don't want it. You know, I don't want to be the one, I don't want to be the one. But it was very clear that it was mine.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how I was going to make that happen. And I, again, like, capacity wise, and even from the standpoint of, I was really successful in perception in this business. So to think, oh my gosh, something else, it just was really difficult to get my brain around. But I was committed to those goals. uh, deeply that we would pay for college for kids, that we had
Mhm,
these financial goals that I was not willing to compromise on. And
mhm.
so there became this line in the sand where, like, I get very committed, and then, when you get committed like that, solutions start to appear. So all
Yeah.
of these things converged at the same time where you should be working with women outside of this business. You need to make more money. And there was this, like, these wheels were turning, whether I wanted them to or not. I was invited to speak at an event in Salt Lake City, so I flew out there, and a business coach I had worked with years before lives out there, and we had stayed in touch. I said, "Oh my gosh, let's meet for dinner." So he picked me up at the airport. We met for dinner, and he said, "Hey, the tool I use, the Habit Finder assessment, we're starting a new training on Monday for new Habit Finder coaches." And when
Mm.
I tell you, like, the thought of being a coach using the Habit Finder had never crossed my mind. I mean, like, never, ever, 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 ever. And so I went home. It just felt right. I just thought, you know what? Just do it. What do I have to lose? And so went through this lengthy certification process to use this tool and the curriculum, and started my business. Literally about 6 weeks later, we opened the corporation to Amy Kemp Inc., which is my business today. That's just it's like 6.5 years old. So it's kind of an accidental discovery or creation, I would
Yeah.
say.
Oh my goodness. Amy, we have so many things to talk about. This is so awesome. My brain is just like, "Oh, I have 12 things that I wanna ask you about." So, and we're gonna talk about your new book, which is very exciting. I have a book coming out April 30th too, so we're gonna definitely dive into that. But before we do that, habits, right?
Mhm.
Habits, and mindset. I think that those 2 things are so foundational for any result that you wanna create. I think one of the most powerful exercises I ever did, right? We hear a lot about track your habits, and we will talk about that. But one of the most powerful exercises I think I've ever done is when I tracked not doing the habit, the flip of it. Well, track how many times you engage in the bad habit that is like getting you the result that you don't like. And it was so eye-opening for me when it's like, well, why am I not getting this result? Well, just start to track every day that you don't engage in the right habit. And when you look at that data, it's like, holy crap. Well, no wonder I'm not getting the results. So talk to me though about habits and yeah,
Can you
I see you lighting up. Go. I'm gonna be quiet. You go.
give me an example what you mean by that, like, of tracking something you're not doing? You mean like, if you want to establish, can you give me an example?
Yeah, okay, exercise. We'll use
Oh,
exercise because I think everyone can relate to that.
good
Why
one.
am I not losing the weight? Why am I not getting fitter? All right, well, and this is the workout I want to do. All right, so in a week, track how many times you didn't exercise. And then when you start seeing that, the reverse of let me now track how many times I didn't do it. And you start seeing those dots connecting, and you're like, oh, well, that's why I'm not getting the result because I was supposed to work out 4 times in a week and I didn't work out 7 times in a week. So that's what I
Yeah,
just think like, I don't know, there's something about track your habit. And it's good. We want that accountability. We want to track it. But sometimes when you flip it and you track the opposite, I don't know. For me, it was like it turned a bulb on in my brain of just like to make that connection of how instrumental those habits are in our day to day. And we make all these excuses of not doing this stuff, and then we don't get the result, and then we think it's all these other problems. And at the end of the day, it's like you either did it or you didn't. Your habit is either I do it or I my habit is I don't do it. And
yeah,
for me, that was just a real game changer when I started really diving in and looking at my habits.
yeah, absolutely. So, actually, this is really great because you're leading me to probably my favorite chapter in the whole book, which
Oh,
is chapter 10. And it's about it's called surrender to structure. But the way you're using the word habit in that, I think, is like a structure. We think of structure in terms of our health, our money, our time, all the places that we make New Year's resolutions that we don't keep. right?
Yeah.
Like all those things that you know would benefit you if you did it, but you start and then you
Right.
stop and you don't know why. So this is the work that I do, that may be a little unique, I would say, is that I think of it like, I love when I run in with a client, when I run into the resistance to the structure or the habit, because
Mhm.
that's where the real good stuff is. That's where the real work is to be done. So I think
Mhm.
of it like, have you been on a beach where you see those people walking where they're looking for the metal? You know, they have the metal
Yeah.
detectors on the beach and they're walking along and then it's like beep, beep, beep. And then they stop and dig down. That's what I think of when I see resistance to something that logically makes sense, but you're just
Mhm.
not doing it, is that
Yeah.
those are the places, and this is really one of the main points in that chapter, is that wherever there is resistance to structure like that, if you dig down, there is usually unhealed pain.
Yeah.
Like,
Makes sense.
that's where we have the healing work to do, or we just have to pull it out and look at it. So, just as an example, I was talking with a client this week and she was having a ton of resistance around doing taxes. And
Mm.
she's brilliant. I mean, she's built an amazing business. I mean, there's no lack of skill or capability to doing
Yeah.
this, but she just wasn't. You know, you'd block out the time to do it and then not do it. And so she was telling me that she realized when she slowed down and just observed her resistance to this task, there was a lot of unhealed pain around a former marriage, a partner who'd been really controlling around taxes, a lot of fear that he kind of instilled in her around it, that came up when she faced that structure that she needed to embrace, or that task or that thing she needed to do that would benefit her. And so before she could move forward, she first had to just compassionately like acknowledge the fear, recognize where it was from, and then take the tiniest step. So the tiniest step, not fill out the whole form, but like fill out one half of the first page and
Yeah.
then rest, you know? But there's something there where we just want to bypass it and push through. And then we can do that for a short amount of time. We can stick with the routine or the habit or the whatever, but then it collapses because
Right.
underneath there's no foundation of doing it from a space of like of healthy motivation,
Yeah.
right?
Would you say yeah, absolutely. Would you say that that also because I know in my own life, I've experienced where it's like, "All right, I'm gonna do this," and then you do it, and you go for a week, and then at about 10 days, you're like, you start falling off that wagon, and it's like willpower isn't enough to
Correct.
keep you going, even though it might be in your heart, it's like you start kind of feeling you start falling off that wagon again, and so how do you I know I'm not the only person that has had this, and so how do you help people to kinda move past that? Like, okay, you're on you got the momentum and you're going, and then you get to that wall where it's just like you just start sort of falling off that wagon again, and how do you help people kinda get past that?
Yeah. Well, in certain areas, I think that we always have an opportunity to re-encounter them over and over and over and over. So for me, that tends to be
Mhm.
more around money. I work with a lot
Mm,
of women, so they tend to struggle in areas of health, exercise, those types of things. Also, a lot of it is connected to shame and unrealistic expectations about our bodies as well. But that's a
mhm.
whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also like, so I think for me, it's about in the spaces where I know it's tender, where I know I have some habits that aren't as healthy, or I have some tendencies to stray away from the structures that are going to benefit me. It's about one, having support systems in place. So people that I'm talking to about it on a regular basis. My bookkeeper, who's my assistant, we're walking through it all the time. She's like, Amy, when I get a little like you know, outside of the lines of the structure that I've decided works for us best.
Yep.
Um, I also know when I'm going too fast in my life, in my work, in my pace overall, that's the place that I'm gonna skip the thing that's gonna benefit me. So
Yeah.
it's like my risk isn't the skipping it or that I need to make it's that I'm going too fast. There's too much on the schedule. I've gotta pull back and slow down so that I can make intentional choices in places where I have default habits of thinking that aren't gonna serve me. Uh,
That's a
I
big
also think
one.
this
Yeah.
perfection thing is just a beast, you know, of just, "I'm gonna work out 6 days a week." No, you're not. Especially
Mm-mm.
not if that's a place in your life where you've always struggled to embrace structure. But can you
Right.
do 3? You know?
Right.
Or can you
Right.
do it's just this, like, lower the bar and go easy on yourself in those spaces and don't have the I'm never sticking with a very detailed budget, like, never. But I do have frameworks and I stay
Mhm.
within them, but don't get me super specific on it. I will bucket every time if it has to be perfect, you know? And so my
Yeah.
risk is like keep the structure where it's more permeable, it's more movable, it's more flexible, but have it so you're safe within it. I'm not just spending money on whatever, whenever,
Yeah.
but I'm also not doing the detailed spreadsheet in the area that is of the hardest place for me to embrace it, right?
Yeah, you said so many important things there. For my planner, I have a planner, best planner ever, and the best way I could come up to describe it was gentle structure,
Yes,
because I
yes,
need that, right?
but
Right? I need that gentle structure. So it's
and
like, okay, here's the framework, but I've got wiggle room within it because I do feel like the harder we try to like figure out every little detail and make it so strict and rigid, I just feel like I naturally will rebel against that because it's just too tight and we're entrepreneurs, we need to be free. And but I
yeah,
still want that gentle structure, like the lines on the road, you can kind of waver in and out a little bit, but like you don't want to go over that center yellow line or you're going to be in trouble.
absolutely. It's so great because I was just talking to a client this week and I said to him, "What do you think?" Because he wants this very detail. He thinks that he should have this very detailed hour by hour plan for his day, but he's always failed at it, right? And he owns a
Yeah.
big business that like is many moving parts. And I said, "Tell me what you think it should be, because I think you have an idea in your head of what, for example, using a planner is." And
Yeah.
his explanation of it, I was like, "Oh." That sounds horrible. Like, I would never be able to do that. Plus, there's no margin for any kind of unexpected thing that pops in there. So, I love your phrase gentle structure because it's like there's movement in structure, right? And when you see people who embrace it in a really healthy way, they have lots of freedom within it. They give
Yeah.
themselves they give themselves regular breaks from the structure. They rest from it and then they re-engage with it. There's rhythm to it. And it's not just like this perfect execution of whatever it is, whether it's your food choices or your time management or your, to-do list or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
pick your structure.
I I know I resonate with him because I tried that for so many years to just be like, "This is down to every hour. This is exactly what I'm gonna do." And then you rebel against it, and then you end up not doing any of it. And then you
Yeah,
shame yourself because you're like, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you do this?" And then it just, like, creates this whole negative cycle. But I find with gentle structure, it's like, so we call it our A task. So when in my planner, it's the A task, and the A task is ideally it'd be great if it could be like a full hour a day, and it's the things that are going to move you forward. So it's like the structure is every day spend 1 hour on your business doing something to move it forward, not busy work, not being in the business, not talking to clients, none of that. Okay, so the structure becomes every day for 1 hour, wherever I fit that hour, I'm going to use that time to work on the business. But you get the freedom and flexibility of where you at, because some days it's like I cannot think about marketing today, but I could think about this. So you get that structure, that wiggle room of what to work on, but then you're maintaining the habit, right? The habit is every day I spend 1 hour a day moving my business forward. So I love that because it just sort of feels like you get enough wiggle room to be creative, but then you've got that gentle structure of like that habit that like if you
Mhm.
don't spend that time working on the business, moving those goals forward, they're not going to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Structure, I mean, we're interchanging words, structure, habits. It's kind of the same idea though, right?
Yeah.
But structure is not a restrictive cage. It is a path to freedom. And I
Mhm.
write about it in the book also, but when you engage in the highest levels of embracing structure, you achieve mastery. So if you think about like an Olympic athlete or even a CEO of a major corporation, right? They're minute by minute, someone is managing their time to protect them from distraction and right. Like there's a
Yeah.
high level of structure embraced by people who are at the highest levels of mastery, right? But there's a whole group of people who are thinking of structure as a restrictive cage that they don't want
Yeah.
to embrace. The irony is when you don't embrace it for long enough, structure will impose itself upon you. So, in your health, if you don't embrace structure with your health over a long enough period of time, you end up um, maybe on medication, or maybe you, in the most extreme example, end up in the hospital because of a condition you've developed from not taking care of your body for a long period of time. So, then the hospital is structure, right? Like people are coming in on a regular basis to take care of your body because you haven't. So by neglecting and pushing the structure away because you think it's a cage, you end up in the cage.
Mhm.
It's like this crazy thing
Yeah.
versus just surrendering. That's why the word surrender is in the chapter title, like surrendering and embracing and moving with it gently, like
Yeah.
choosing it, going
Right.
slow enough that you are choosing it so that you can move forward to spaces of freedom where your body has freedom to be healthy and move about our world and you can create what you were designed to create in our world. So,
Yeah, I think it's no different. It's easy. We understand exercise, health. Absolutely. It's no different than our marketing, our business finances, because it's like if we ignore these things for too long, they get really out of whack. And it's like for your health, you might end up in the hospital. Well, for your business, you might end up, in bankruptcy or other places where it's just like, ah. But if we can, again, I love that, embrace that gentle structure where
mhm.
every week I make sure that I look at my finances. Every month I review my financial reports. We just get in there and we kind of really embrace that structure of those key things that we need to be doing. It does. It keeps us out of the financial hospital too. Not right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or even the structure of lead generation or
Yeah.
connecting new potential customers or clients or whatever you call them in your business. Those are structures, keeping track of, are you engaging in regular networking opportunities? Those are structures that keep the business growing and alive for a long period of time. But again, it has to be a choice in order for it to be sustainable over the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, it really does, and it's so key. I really believe these things are just so key, but I love the words that we're using. Embrace that structure,
Mhm.
surrender to structure, gentle structure. It does not have to be so rigid and let's face it, when I had a client, he was an executive for a very, very large company, and he shared his calendar with me on a coaching call, and I nearly had a heart attack when I saw his calendar because every moment again was filled out with something, and then he had color coded it so it looked like the rainbow of fruit flavors of just, and there was no like
Mm,
time to breathe,
mm,
time for a lunch break, time for, oh, that didn't go the way I expected it to go, and now I got to go fix this. Like
yeah.
no, none of that. And then, what we were coaching on was like, I'm not being as effective as I'd like to be. Well, let's start by getting
Totally.
rid of this because it literally gave me like a breakout. It's like I saw it and I'm like, "Oh my god, how are you?" No
Yes.
wonder I couldn't function in that kind of rigidness in the day to day, and guess what? He wasn't functioning in it either because it was just too rigid.
Okay, so on that same spectrum, the mastery and then like where structure is imposed on you, if you go to the other side of mastery on the spectrum, it would be an unhealthy level of structure. And that to me, like in the health realm, might be something like an eating disorder, right? Where
Mhm.
you're so regulating every single thing that it becomes unhealthy. Like there is a tipping point with it, so you're looking for the middle of the pendulum,
Yeah.
where you have freedom to move about within it, but also there are some things protecting you from going off the road and into the ditch. So, yeah.
You said something earlier that really resonated with me, and I wanna touch on it again, the slowing down. Right? You had said when you started feeling like, it was like, I'm probably trying to go too fast. And I wanna come back to that point because that really resonated with me too. When I feel like it's just like I start getting overwhelmed, start feeling like I'm not as efficient, I usually am trying to do too many things and I'm trying to do them too quickly. And so I know there are people listening right now that are like, "Oh, yeah, me too." So that's why I wanna kinda come back to this a little bit, and how important is it to slow down?
Mm. Oh my gosh, this is like my favorite topic because it's a thought habit. And the core message of my book is that you can't outwork your thought habits. I have a feeling your listeners are like my people, right? Where if they could have just worked harder to get what they're wanting, they would have already gotten it. I mean,
Oh my god, Amy, you're giving me goosebumps because you're talking to me too, and I'm sure people listening, it's like, you can't outwork your thought habits.
no,
Okay, keep going because this is something that so resonates with me. So many years of my career is just like, let me work harder, let me work harder, let me work harder. So keep talking about that. But you can't outwork your thought habits. That's so powerful.
it works to a certain point. You
Mhm.
can build something just working more, working harder, working more, getting more efficient to a point, but then it almost becomes like um it like starts to become, what's that called, the diminishing return, like where the more you do
Mhm.
that then the less you get for it, kind of a
Yeah.
thing. It's sort of one of those equations. So here's the thought that had to change for me. I thought I need more income this to achieve my goals. So immediately my brain goes to, I have to work more. And then I went to, no, no, because that slams into what is my top priority, which is raising these three kids with my husband, having a life that we have created that we love outside of work. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice on that. I won't. So then
Yeah.
I felt like I was just stuck in this place. Like, okay, well then this is okay. Well then we have to change the goal. But then I was like, no, I'm not changing the goal. So what had to change in that was my message that was saying, I have to work more or work harder to get more income. Craziest part, and this, I work with my clients on this a lot, is adding, what you most people need to do at that point is add more guilt-free playtime to their schedule that is scheduled. So
Mm.
we just did this in a group of mine where I had them audit the next 90 days of what they have scheduled for playtime. And that can be anything from, for me, it would be like pickleball on a regular basis, yoga on a regular basis, fun things. We went to this really cool sound art experience in the city last weekend that was really interesting and unique, and I'd never done anything like it. That was super cool. This weekend, we're going to see The Price is Right. They're doing these live shows, right? So we're going with friends, we're having dinner and going and doing that. It doesn't have to be big things, though, either. It can
Yeah.
just be regular walks in the local park or with a friend. I love to play cards. So it could be just getting together with friends and playing cards. All of those things are guilt free play. What happens when we engage with more of that and it's scheduled is that we start to have more creative, inspired ideas because we're playing. And that's what creative ideas come from is play when we're thinking out differently or we're giving our brains a break from just the grind of work. And so a lot of times when you reach that cap where you just can't work any harder, it feels like you're pedaling backward on a bike. It's the most counterintuitive solution, but it is adding more scheduled guilt-free play, regular weekends away, or even like vacations more frequently so that you can replenish and recharge. That is actually the most important part of your work.
Mm.
All of my best ideas for my business came when I was not in my office.
Yeah.
Like every
Yeah.
maker, it's just like people will say, "Well, how did you come up with that?" Well, I don't know. I was on a walk or I was, and it just popped
Yeah.
into my head. The inspired ideas come when we give ourselves a break and time to replenish and relax. So
A
there's
a
a really
hundred
great
percent. Yes.
there's a really great story in the book about a client of mine who's a financial advisor. And man, she said to me, Amy, I hired you so that I could make more money and grow my business. And you're telling me that I have to work less. So I had challenged her to take Fridays off in the summer. She said, that feels so wrong. Also, it flies in the face of like the corporate America,
Yeah.
sort of traditional American,
Yeah,
message.
yeah, if you stop for lunch, you are lunch, right?
Right.
We grew up
Yeah.
with this, and
Yeah.
it's just like, you can't stop for a break, yeah, and it's just like we're kinda programmed with this sort of just nonstop go, go, go.
Yes. So she took the Fridays off. She started scheduling things that forced her to leave the office at a certain time that were fun, like with friends, cousins, whatever,
Yes.
weekend away with her husband. And her business tripled.
Yeah.
It, I don't, I don't know how it works, but it does. Like there's something to it. The
Mhm.
business is there to the business is just a vehicle to create a life. It's not the life.
Right.
You've
Right.
got to keep the business as the vehicle and not the life. And so you've got to spend time and energy on the life too. And then that feeds the business. And then the business it's just this really cool reciprocal thing.
And it works 100%.
Mhm.
I know that I get my best ideas when I'm at the barn with my horse because my
Oh,
mind is, we're playing and I'm not thinking about it. And then, sure enough, on the drive out to the barn or back, that solution to that problem just pops in there. Me and my husband ride motorcycles, we ride four wheelers. I'm a bit of a tomboy, but it's just like when you're out on the bike, you get the ideas, like the things start going. And it's so funny. I have a similar client too, where it was so funny. This was a couple years ago where she's a big golfer. And I'm like, all right, you're going to start playing golf in the middle of the week, in the middle of your work week. And we had to work on this so long because she's like, I cannot leave in the middle of my work week and go play golf for 4 hours. And now she does it religiously. Like nothing gets into that middle of the week, chunk of time that she takes to go play golf. And she's like, Jennifer, that's like my best CEO thinking time. It's been the best thing for my business. And it's like right on a Wednesday, she's
mm,
like, half a day, I'm going to play golf. So there is definitely, I think, something there where you are stepping away, your perspective is shifting, you're getting those ideas to solve those problems because you can't be in the problem and solve it. You've got to step away from it. So I
Yeah.
agree. I'm 100% like, I know that there is something there.
Yeah. I think for women too, this can be tricky if they have worked as like a kind of an employee and then moved their way up to more of a leadership type of a thinking role, or then became an entrepreneur and owned their own business. They think more like an employee, or they think, oh, what are my employees going to think if I'm just leaving to go play golf in the middle of the week?
Right.
But I do think there's something to be said, like your job, you're the only one who can do the vision, the long-term strategic thinking, the bigger picture. Your responsibility is to protect the business long term.
Right.
And that deeper level of thinking rarely happens when you're surrounded by tasks and to-do lists and emails. And you have to do all that too. But like the bigger picture stuff has to happen. And it rarely happens in your office.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
kind of
so,
key.
so important. Okay,
Mhm.
we're running out of time, but Amy, this has been such a great conversation. I want to make sure we have time to tell us a little bit about your upcoming book and then share where people can find you if they want to work with you more.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is called I See You, and it is a guide for women who want more influence, impact, and income without more work. And the book has been a lifelong dream of mine. So to see it, to hold it in my hands, and just to see how well it's doing and to get feedback on it has been such a gift. So the book, you can get it obviously anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of the wherever you like to buy your books. But you can find me most easily at amykemp.com uh, and find out more about the book there. There's also a really cool video that was an inspired idea while I was playing pickleball, by the way, of a video of me with 8 women who were advanced readers, and we're just in my living room having a conversation about the book. It's like, it was a top 10 experience of my life, that conversation. To hear them talk about the book and to talk to each other and to hear their stories woven into it. So it's free. You can watch it and just partake in that real, or like real people
Yeah.
conversation around the book and the topics in it. So amykemp.com is the best place to find me.
Oh, I love that so much. I love those real, just organic conversations. We get a lot of that at our retreats, and we're getting ready to do one in Sedona. It's coming up here in another month. And it's that natural, organic flow of conversation, I think, that is just so powerful. You're in your living room, you're somewhere beautiful, and everybody's just relaxed. And it's just like there's so many gold nuggets in there, so many gold nuggets. So I love that. I love that. All right, you guys. Amy, thank you so much for the amazing conversation today. You guys hop on, grab a copy of Amy's book. My new book is coming out April 30th called The Apple Stand: How to Rekindle the Love for Your Business. And the idea for that also came from a retreat of listening to so many business owners who were talking about, like, well, business owners, we tend to smile on the outside while we're dying on the inside. And then we want to keep up appearances. And I saw so much of this going on with my clients, and I've experienced it for myself. And so I was like, you know what? It's time to start a conversation about this. And so that's what it's about, is really helping you to rekindle that love for your business.
Is it
And
available now for pre-orders?
it's not yet. We're working on the final files yet. Like, it's all there. They're all like getting everything ready to go, and then we'll have it out, everywhere books are sold. So April 30th will be the official
You let
date for
me know.
that.
I totally would read that.
I
I would
I
love.
will. I absolutely will. All right, guys, but go get out there, check out Amy, grab a copy of her book. My book's coming out April 30th. Hop on our website, Jennifer Don Coaching, if you want more information about our retreats, upcoming books, everything that's happening. Amy, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, that's it for today. Get out there